know you guys are getting ready to kick off the tour on Friday in Texas with Men Without Hats, The Motels, and Naked Eyes. How did you get together with the other groups?
I guess it's to do with us, Wang Chung, that is, doing a greatest hits kind of compilation thing this year. These things always take longer than you expect, you know. So initially we were thinking about a tour to support this, what's going to be a sort of double vinyl album of greatest hits plus a whole bunch of outtakes and tracks that have not been released before. And so we wanted to do something where we could sort of show off a bit of the sort of range of our catalogue, you know. Because sometimes when you do 80s shows, you're just playing the hits, you know. So Dance for Days, Everybody Have Fun Tonight, Let's Go are the songs that people know us for. But we also wanted to do songs like To Live and Die in LA, Space Junk, which is a song that got used in The Walking Dead in the 2000s, and also They Hypnotize Me, you know, which is a song from Inner Space, you know. So we have a lot of songs that people know but don't necessarily relate to Wang Chung. And so this format with like two or three other bands that sort of complement what we do gives us all time to sort of flex our muscles a bit, you know, expand the territory a bit, and play longer sets, but still give the people a kind of proper 80s experience.
Here in St. Louis, it's just going to be a solo show for Wang Chung. So does that change your show format at all when you're just on your own?
Yeah, it does, because we play longer, basically.
Yeah.
So for the most of actually by the 80 shows, we're scheduled to play 40, 45 minutes, you know. But I think at the the City Winery, we're going to be doing more like a sort of 75-minute set, I think. So that means we can really go a lot of different places. Nick has written a new song that we play called I Love You, You Idiot. Yeah, so we worked up, there's a track called City of the Angels on To Live and Die in LA, which is like the music that is the instrumental opening to the film. And we play that now, and I think that sort of gives people a whole different sense of the band, you know, because it's almost like a progressive rock track. The way
right. When you write a song for a movie, is it a different process than when you're just writing it for an album?
Well, I think most of the songs that are on soundtracks are songs that pre-existed soundtracks, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
So we weren't considering that. I think the only song was really the one in Breakfast Club, Fire in the Twilight. That was clearly a song for the movie, but that was a co-write with Keith Forsey and Steve Schiff, I think it was, who were writing the tracks for that album, and they just asked us to perform. But whenever Wang Chung gets involved, we always kind of tinker with things and sort of adapt it to our own kind of style, I suppose you'd say, you know. And but yeah, Fire in the Twilight we were very conscious that it was a track for a movie.
What was the experience like making the soundtrack for To Live and Die in LA? You know, William Friedkin's one of the most respected directors around. What was it like working, you know, on that film?
It was incredible. You know, I mean, he is a powerful presence. But I know he has a reputation for being difficult, you know, a maverick at least, and downright obstreperous at worst. You know, but with us, he was always just incredibly, well, I can't think of a better word than nice. You know, he listened. He was very sort of, you know, I think sometimes with creative people, when you're working on, you know, even working with a band, you know, choosing the musician, you know, is in a sense the most important part of the process, you know, because when you get the right musician, then you can deliver the music in the way you want. And I think similarly, Billy on his soundtrack work, you know, whether it was us or whether it was Tangerine Dream or Mike Oldfield for the music in The Exorcist, he chose music that just fitted exactly what he wanted to create the right mood, you know. So working with us, you know, having chosen Wang Chung, that's what he wanted. So whatever we gave him was kind of like, yep, I love it. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like he chose us and we did something else, you know. So in that sense, he was always a supporter of ours, and he became a close friend, especially, you know, I was always, you know, every year visited LA, you know, for one thing or another, and a lot of times stayed with him and just hung out with him. We used to go to the LA Philharmonic together, and he was a fascinating person and an important person in my life, that's for sure.
I also was checking out the album that Wang Chung did in 2019 with the Prague Philharmonic Orchestra. What was that experience like?
I guess when you're doing the actual arrangements, we worked in tandem with a guy who does a lot of orchestral arrangements of rock stuff, So he's very skilled at what he does, But Nick and I were always sort of like on his case, so trying to sort of find slightly kind of unusual solutions, So like Space Junk is on the album and has like a bass clarinet playing the riff, rather than strings and stuff. So we were trying to sort of push it in the more Stravinsky kind of direction and less John Williams, I suppose, But, so the actual processing of the arrangements we were probably working on for 4 or 5 weeks, really. Not full time, but, just emailing stuff back and forth, The actual time with the orchestra was really just 24 hours in Prague working with the orchestra. Because, essentially you just put the music in front of them and they play it. It's not like rock bands where it takes 6 months for the bass player to tune up and stuff, So, it's, the scores are written, that you put the music in front of them, the guys count it in and they just play it. You're involved. So we did the whole album in one day, really, which sounds unusual for a rock band, but, it was, like I say, it was the orchestra playing and they just know exactly what they're doing. They do 2 or 3 takes, I guess. I always thought the first take was the best because it had the energy, but they quite do a patching and stuff, So, and obviously great to be in Prague. It's an amazing European city with an incredible heritage, and I stayed on a couple of extra days and saw those guys play in the Prague Philharmonic in one of the big concerts there. And that was just incredible.
I just spoke recently to Collective Soul, and their guitarist told me the one thing that he really enjoys after all these years with that band is that all the members seem to have a compatibility and they get along. How important is that to a band to have that compatibility with one another?
Very important, I think. I mean, Nick and I, we go through our peaks and troughs in terms of getting along. I think that's important in a creative partnership as well. That you're not just sort of yes people to each other. But beyond the creative work as people, we really get along well. Nick is a friend and a brother, really, and particularly because of all that we've been through in the last more than 40 years together, negotiating our way through this business.
What does it mean to you when, people will mention Wang Chung as one of the more iconic groups of the 80s?
Incredibly proud, really, to be given that accolade. I think a lot of that was down to our work on MTV. The videos we made and the fact that MTV during the 80s was this very powerful force in people's lives, So I think a lot of our videos and songs are ingrained in people's memories, from coming home from school and switching on the TV and Dancehall Days is there, But I think, everybody had fun tonight, everybody Wang Chung tonight, the way that became really part of the culture, if you like, it's been used in so many different TV series and right now, there's an Amazon Prime movie called The Idea of You, which features Dancehall Days very heavily in one scene. And there's a new sort of series on Netflix, I think, called Everybody's in LA, which uses To Live and Die in LA as the title track. And there's apparently a real lot of activity on the internet about people digging that and, coming back to that song and really loving it, Because I think with To Live and Die in LA, it wasn't a sort of hit at the time, really. The movie was not a feel-good movie by any means, In fact, It was quite shocking, certainly at the time, And the music, was released as a sort of soundtrack album, which was unusual to do for a band in those days, And really the marketing of it was a whole different thing for soundtracks than it was for pop records, So To Live and Die in LA was not like a massive top 40 hit by any means. But I think a lot of people come up to me when we play shows and say, "Oh man, that's my favourite song," And I think it's got a sort of depth to it. And also, it's one of those songs where I think because it wasn't a big hit at the time, people found it themselves. And I think when you find music yourself, it means more to you in a way. Music kind of like ran straight at you, if you know what I mean. So, I think when people come to hear Wang Chung live at the City City Winery, isn't it? Yeah. I think they'll get that sort of range of what we do and the nuances of what we do, and it's very cool. But to answer your question, being this significant part of 80s culture is something that I know both Nick and I are incredibly proud of.
And last question for you. Any chance we see new music from Wang Chung down the road?
Yeah, I mean, we're both writing stuff. The stuff that I write these days tends to be a little more in the progressive rock camp, I suppose, and I've released a couple of solo albums recently under just my name, Jack Hues, which are all streaming and stuff. So if you're a Wang Chung fan, you may sort of hear the echoes, of the band in that. But there's an album that came out in 2020 called Primitive, and 2021 an album called Electroacoustic Works. And I have a third album that's basically written. I've recorded a lot of it and hope to release that in January of next year, or sort of early next year anyway. So there is new music, but not necessarily straight down the Wang Chung track. I'm sure at some point Nick and I will get around to spending a bit of time in the studio and doing some stuff together.
Awesome. Well, Jack, thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing Wang Chung next week at the City Winery here in St. Louis. Dance all day. Dance all day long. Take your baby by the wrist. She